difference between personal power and divine power, and how we can live empowered lives, right? That's the picture that we're getting, is each of us living in our full presence and our full power, sharing who we are, not putting on a face, not putting on a mask, not putting on some persona, but really being who we are, authentically. The authentic expression of who you've come here to be. Trusting that inner voice and allowing yourself to be that expression, because that's what empowered means. Empowered means being you. Authentically, completely, beautifully, awkwardly flawed, quirky you. Because that's who we are. The divine expression, individual gift that each of us is. So today we're leaning in and stepping up, because we've been talking about it, and one of those things about divine power is that we can talk, these spiritual concepts are really interesting because we could spend forever talking about them. As a minister, I feel pretty good because I have enough information that I'm pretty confident I could do sermons until the cows come home. I could, and those of you who know me know I could talk that much too, that long without stopping. And my poor husband. Sorry, honey. So that's really good, but the issue is that how can we take the concepts and put them into action, put them into practice, to integrate them and actually do something with it? Because it's really nice and cool in here. We could spend the next 10 weeks talking about whatever we want in the air conditioning and having some coffee after and some nice chat and making it all nice, but it's not going to make a stitch of a difference in your life. And I'm not here to make it nice. I'm here to make a difference in your life. I'm here to inspire you to make the difference in your life. I had a conversation this week with some students in my class that I'm teaching, and I reminded them what my job as minister is. Do you know what my job as minister is? Don't answer that, because I'm going to give you the answer in a second. My job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Yeah. All right, so I say comfort first, right? Like comfort comes first. And so it was funny that it just, something happened in class and that just popped out of my mouth, and I was shocked that I said it actually, and because it's something that I heard back in ministerial training in seminary. And so this week, as I kind of laughed about it the next day, like, oh yeah, that's what I said, and then start to walk through this week about seeing what's happening in the world right now, that sat with me. And so I did some research to see where that phrase actually came from. And so that phrase wasn't originally ascribed to ministry and to ministers. I was glad to find out. But it was coined around 1902. And it referred to journalists. Journalists, their job was to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I thought that was interesting. And so how they took it was this, that those who were the journalists, the afflicted, were the victims of crime and corruption in the big city, right? Think about 1902. And the comfortable were the fat cats in business and politics who were dabbling in crime and corruption behind the scenes. And so the journalists saw their dual role in the media as both comforting the victims of corruption and also calling the sleazy fat cats to account for their crimes, right? That's what they were trying to do. But something happened in 1987. It got ascribed to church, to God, actually. God, that's what God does, they say. And that's what the church does. And so then it got translated into that's what a minister's job is. And someone said it to me. And so now I think that that's my job, right? So this is what I want to start with. So I want to just explain it, that I love you. I love everyone in this room. And I know your worth. And I know that you are important to this life. And so when we talk about harnessing your divine power and leaning in and stepping up, my love for you is so much that I'm not going to let you sit back and not do that. My love for you and my love for God is so strong that I know that I'm going to say a couple things today that might get a couple people maybe not so happy with me. Okay? I'm going to love you even if you're mad at me. I'm going to love you even if you think that what I talk about isn't necessarily church work. But let me tell you, it is. And I can explain it. And if something comes up for you ever, either today or at any time that I do something on Sunday and it sits with you and you don't get it and you're kind of tormented by it, call me. My door is open. I'm wanting to always sit down with, if anyone's got something that's upsetting that bothers them, or they have a question about what's going on at the center, or the conversations that we have, or a class, or anything, I am always available to you. My plate's never too full for my community. Okay? So, do we have an agreement on that? Okay. So these are my questions for you. Are you living your greatness? You don't have to answer it. It's just for you. I don't need your neighbor to know if you think you're living your greatness. But are you living your greatness? Are you living the life you want to live? Have you settled anywhere in your life? Are you comfortable? Do you think that the great work of your life is behind you? Do you think that the great adventure of your life is behind you? Do you think that the purpose for your life is behind you? Because I'm going to tell you that it's not. None of those things are behind you, and I don't care. You know, I'm going to say it. Whether you're 2 months or 200 years old, I don't care. You're here. And if you are living and breathing and alive and sitting in this room right now, the purpose of your life is not done. And the worth of your life is not behind you. And the adventure, the great joy, the great love, the great passion, the great creativity, whatever it is, whatever your passion is, it's not behind you. It's still there for you. And if you have stepped back, calmed down, let go, other people can fight that fight, other people can say what they want, I'm done. You know what? No, I'm not having it. God's not going to have it. And nobody else in your life it will allow you to be complacent, to just sit back and be like, okay, enough. And I'll tell you, if we saw anything in these couple of weeks, but especially in this week, there's a call for us to not be complacent, to not sit back, and to not just defer to somebody else. Because we think that somebody else is smarter than us, or somebody else knows better how to handle those difficult, challenging situations in life, or that somebody else knows better about my body, or my health, or your body, or health, or anything. That we're not going to defer our knowing, our understanding, our engagement with our life to any outside authority. We're not going to do it. Because you know what? You know best. Inside your mind and your heart, you know best for you. You know what's best for you. And you know where you're leaning in and stepping up, and you know where you're not. But you know what? So does God. God did not make cowards. God did not make cowards. And God did not make us in the image and likeness of itself to sit back and let horrible things happen to other people. God did not make us in His image and likeness to walk around this life asleep on any level, and I'm talking about any topic, any situation that lights you up. You know, whatever that is that's happening on the outside is a reflection for us. And so when we get lit up on something that's happening in the world, when we get upset about it, when it bothers us and we're trying to make sense of it, it's because we are called to participate in that situation. It's because we are called because we have something to say about it, and we need to say it. And so listen, this is you know this about me, if you've been around very long, and our new friend is going to find out really quickly, that I am not one of those New Thought ministers that's going to say it's all good, it's all God, and call it good. Because you know what? That is a huge, what we call spiritual bypass. What I'm interested in is the process of how I know that it's all good and it's all God, and that's where we're getting to. But I need to know the steps of how to get there. I need to know how I navigate living in the midst of something that doesn't feel like it's all good and it's all God. I am the one who is going to call us when we are not stepping up. I'm the one who's going to call us, and everyone, so this is the funny thing for me. Can you say I got some energy on this? Okay. I'll breathe. All right. So often I stand in the back on Sundays after church on the welcome line, and people will come through and they will hug me and say, "Thank you, this talk was for me today." And I love that. I'm so grateful for that, but it's not true. Thank you for writing that talk for me. It was just what I needed to hear today. You just did it just straight for me, you know. And I get it a lot. There's a bunch of people who do that. But I have to tell you a little secret. It's not, it's for me. It's for me. And it's because what my process is that through my spiritual practice, I open to the divine and ask. I make welcome what wants to be made known through me today, you know, this week. What do I say? And I have a very clear conversational relationship with the divine that I open to the impressions of what's happening, and then just I go through my week, and what shows up and what wants to come out comes out. And so I'm glad that it resonates with you, because that means we're going in the right direction, and there is really one mind, and we're all part of that, and that's great. But it's hard for me to do the bypass, right? It's hard for me to try and show up and make nice with the challenges in this life. I can't stand up here and be a smiling, a polite coward or a smiling fraud, right? I can't do that. Because this is why. What I know is this, is that what's happening in the outside world, that we live in this experience of life, and in New Thought we know that all of the work is done in mind. It's all done within us. It's all done in our mind. It's how we, it's our attachment, our beliefs, our expectations of life, and how that gets all messed up, and that's, you know, and that's how we call experiences into our life to clarify that. So we're living in the middle of a huge feedback mechanism. Your life is a feedback mechanism for you. So if things are rocky, you know what, that's the area, in one area, that's the area you put your attention. You know, and we talk about it, right? Like I try to have opportunities for us to look at our relationships and look at our financial life and look at our health and look at our own divine relationship with God and all of these different areas that we have challenges in. When one pops up, it's because there's something within us that needs to be aligned, resolved, cleared, forgiven, you name it. And that's where the work is. But when there's something that's huge happening in the world, it's for all of us. When there's something that's ginormous happening around us, it's for all of us to look at. Each and every one of us is being called in this moment to look inside and see where we are okay with humans treating other humans without any dignity. How can we live with ourselves? How can we sleep? How can we exist without acknowledging the fact that there's something wrong here? And you know what, and I'm just going to say, this isn't a political statement, this is a statement of humanity. And so we are being called to step up. We're being called to stand up in a new way. We are being called to stand up for what we know to be true in our own way. To use our voices, which we know have power, to use our words, which we know have power, to create spaces of respect, of appreciation, of acknowledgement, of understanding, of compassion, of care. You know, the borders aren't real, right? There isn't a line. When you're standing at four corners, you don't know what state you're in. I mean, there's a line there, they put it there. But you know, like if you were standing on a state line, you wouldn't know. If you stand on a country line, you're not going to know. Borders are real, but humans are real, and people are real. And we need to know that how we treat other people is a reflection of who we are in the world. So I'll admit something to you too. I might as well just lay it all out there. That I'm not a huge Bible scholar. I've studied the Bible, I've read it for years, and I'm in the process of looking for a new Bible teacher and doing more study on it. So I was surprised this week. I surprised myself when a scripture kept flowing through my head. And so I was shocked by that. But Matthew 25:40 just kept going through my head constantly. And I kept saying it over and over again, and I kept saying to myself, okay, what does this mean? But this is a teaching of Jesus, and I found out that this was actually one of Mother Teresa's favorite scriptures. Jesus says, truly I tell you, whatever you did to one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did to me. So now in my, and we all know that we are what we consider an inclusively Christian church, okay? So that means that we follow the teachings of Jesus and we open to the other scriptures, okay? So that Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, knew that there was a spiritual truth that ran through all religions. And so he went through and created the science of mind out of that base of the foundation of the teachings that run through all religions. It goes through the golden rule. There's a golden rule in every religion. How you treat others how you want to be treated, right? And so what I was thinking this week is, what would Jesus be doing this week?
Yeah.
If Jesus was here, what would Jesus be doing? Let me tell you, Jesus would be pissed off. Jesus would be really mad. Jesus would be really angry. I keep thinking of, somebody sent me that picture of the angry Jesus, and I was going to put it up, but I didn't. I'm not doing that. But it takes me back to the foundation of how we are with one another. And so when something big like this pops, when we're all focused on what's happening there, and it does resonate with us, it makes us look not only at that big situation, because it's there for a reason. It's there to bring light. It's there to bring healing. I know when things happen, they happen for a reason, to support the evolution and growth for all of us. And we have a choice as to how we take the experience and move forward with it. We can see how when someone has a traumatic experience, that we've got a choice. There are people who, and I'll just use cancer as an example, sometimes when people get cancer, one of two things could happen. It could motivate them into a whole new life. Cancer means change, inside and outside. Cancer means change, because it's a stagnation of growth. And so, and there are people who pop into a whole new life, who completely transform when they get diagnosed with something. And then there are those people who use it as an out. And everything in between, right? That just, they feel powerless. Some authority tells them, you've got stage 4 cancer. 2 weeks later, they're dead. I've seen everything in between that. We have a choice as to how we handle the things that happen in our lives. We have a choice as to how we react to what's happening in the world. And you know what? We could sit back and just say, okay, go work it out. But you know what? There are children down on Winchester who have been taken from their parents at the border. And they are down the street from us, alone, probably being drugged for behavior reasons. I'm sorry, I'm angry as Jesus would be, you know? And so what are we going to do? How do we handle this, right? This is where I've been this week. And I try really hard not to talk about things until I'm processed on them. But I couldn't not do this today. And I know that I'm in the middle of it. And I know that this is a difficult moment for a lot of us. I sat here last night watching our teens and my kid dance around. And I kept thinking of what would happen if this was an unsafe world for me. If this Southern California turned, I was trying to explain to Emily the other day and said, listen, if there were gangs running rampant here and I was afraid that Daddy was going to get kidnapped and you were going to get taken from me, I would take you and I would drive as far as I could and then I would walk as far as I could to try and get you in a safe space. And that's what these people are doing. So I know that the first thing we need to do is figure out where we are in relation to God in relation to this. Because it's about us knowing that something is operating for the highest and holiest in this. I'm going to hold that truth because I know God so well. I know the truth about God so well that I can sit with a situation that does not look like God's in the middle of it and know that God's in the middle of it. so well that we can call the next evolution out of it. That's the beginning piece, is to deepen our faith through this and not lose it. Because it's really easy to go through the week and be angry and to be so upset. One of my colleagues, and I follow very closely, is the senior minister of the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis. And she put, I shared this the other day on my Facebook, but I thought it was appropriate to say here, is this. She says this: Jesus said that I am in the world but not of it. My interpretation of that is this: I can notice what's going on, then act appropriately, but not let it affect my inner sense of holy peace and calm. My outrage and overwhelm doesn't create solutions. Letting holy wisdom think through me does. Spiritual people don't react against, they move towards. Okay, spiritual people don't react against, they move towards. Because we know that we're creative. We know that our word has power. We know what Ernest Holmes taught us, that there's a power and a presence that's greater than we are, and we can use it. And we can use it to create something new. We can use it to create something different, to bring those qualities of the divine into experience. We know God is love. We know God is peace and harmony. We know God is possibility and presence. And as we do our treatment, as we know that all is spiritual, we are calling it into being. We are putting our attention, and when we put our attention upon a situation, it expands. It grows. We call it forth from the center of it. We don't put peace on something. It's already there. We call it out. And so I'm inviting us all to look with different eyes, to put on our spiritual goggles, to put on our spiritual glasses. Wouldn't that be funny to say that instead of what we said in college about the goggles? Oh, that was funny. I'm not the only one who knows about beer goggles from college. I tried. That's why I'm not a comedian. That's why I don't make my money on that stage. Okay, all right, so I'm calling, I'll get back on. Okay, so I'm calling us all to put our spiritual goggles on so that when we look at a situation, even if we don't do anything outside of our house but watch TV and we see what's happening, we know God's at the center of that situation. That little child that we saw the picture of this week, crying in front with other people turned around with their backs to them, was heartbreaking. But we can look and know that that child is not alone. God's there. And somehow something's going to show up there to bring some peace and some love. And sometimes that's the first thing we can do. That's the only thing we can do to start. And if that's the only thing we can do to start, that's huge. Because as we put our attention upon it, it expands. As we put our attention on the fact that God's in every situation, God shows up more. As we invite it, as we welcome it, as we know that everything is spiritual, as we declare it. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that holy anger has a place, right? Like, I know that it's motivating, and it's going to pull us from our complacency, from our place of surrender. It's going to inspire us to move in a new way. I trust that process, and I know for each and every one of us it will be different as to what we are being called to. But the first thing we need to do is to make peace with it, within ourselves, understanding that yes, this is not a great moment. We're not at our best. But we're always evolving. We're always developing because God is in all of it and God is always expanding. We are always bringing more of who we are and developing and revealing more as we move through this life. And I can know that in this situation too. And as we put those things together, we start to see it begin to change. We start to see it begin to evolve. But I understand because sometimes it can feel like we're powerless. There's nothing I can do to make a difference. I'm just one person. Sometimes my vote doesn't even seem to count. What's up with that? And I know that voice is there. It's not just me. That we have that voice. Sometimes it just says, yeah, why are you trying? It's not going to make a difference. But I don't think that that's true. I know that anything that we do is going to make a difference. And so when I feel like that, I go back to a specific writing, and I'm going to do a little reading for you here. It's a little bit longer than I normally do, and this is from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and I've read this before. She's a therapist, a writer, a wonderful mind, and she wrote a piece called "You Were Made for These Times." So I'm just going to invite you to take a breath and just open to this. She says this: one of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul on deck shines like gold in dark times. The light of the soul throws sparks, can send up flares, build signal fires, causes proper matters to catch fire. To display the lantern of soul in shadowy times like these, to be fierce and to show mercy towards others, both are acts of immense bravery and greatest necessity. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. If you would help to calm the tumult, this is one of the strongest things you can do. There will always be times when you feel discouraged. I too have felt despair many times in my life, but I do not keep a chair for it. I will not entertain it. It is not allowed to eat from my plate. The reason is this: in my uttermost bones I know something, as do you. It is that there can be no despair when you remember why you came to earth, who you serve, and who sent you here. The good words we say and the good deeds we do are not ours. They are the words and deeds of the one who brought us. In that spirit, I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt. But that's not what great ships were built for. That's not what great ships were built for, and that's not what we were created for. So this is a case of returning to our center to see where we are with what's before us and figuring out what's ours to do. And so if it's calling your Congress people and your representatives, do it. If it's writing letters, if it's participating in a protest, mark. If it's collecting teddy bears to bring to the detention centers, whatever it is, you need to be clear about what's yours to do. If we're going to donate money to the Immigrant Defense Fund, if we're going to, whatever it could be for you. But we need to do something. Not only do we need to know the truth, but we need to stand up and declare it. And that is done when we do something. When we step up and show up and we give our gift and participate in life in the way that we know it. So I'm not saying for each of us to go out and protest the immigration policy. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that there is something in you that wants to be shared with the world. And maybe it is this issue because it's up for a lot of people. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But wherever there is something that you have that idea, that inkling, that spark in the back of your mind, you know what, I'd like to see this be different, that's when you need to act. And maybe it's even just writing a declaration of your opinion of it and putting it on your Facebook. Maybe it's as simple as that. But taking a stand for what's right. Taking a stand for what you know to be true. Taking a stand for the humanity of all people is just, I don't understand why there'd be a question about it. But we need to do that. Ernest Holmes, and not let ourselves go into a place of despair and despondency because it looks so scary right now. Again, whenever something shows up that I don't like, I go back to what inspires me and what grounds me. So you're getting all my good ones today. So this is from Ernest Holmes from The Science of Mind. He says this. And this is, the caps are his, by the way. To desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we do not know the truth. It's pretty confronting. That's him being the antagonist. When things look the worst, that's the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to the operation of truth. When things look the worst is the best time to work, the most satisfying time. And then this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. The person who can throw himself with a complete abandon into the limitless sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all apparent moorings, is the one who will always receive the greatest reward. You gotta cut it and leap. We are being called to stand up. We are being called to stand up in a new way to this life. We are being called to stand up in a new way in this life. And so what are you going to stand up for? That's my question. What do you want to stand up for? So you know what's coming, because you know me. I'm going to call you to stand up. I'm going to call you to stand up for those things that we know to be true, for those things that we value and those things that are important. I'm calling you to lean in and stand up. Stand up for kindness and compassion. Who wants to stand up for kindness and compassion? Stand on up when you're ready to do that. Yeah. Stand up for respect and human dignity. Stand up for empowerment. Stand up for God. Or stand up for yourself. We are being called to stand up for the infinite divine source of all life that has come forth through each and every one of us. And I'm going straight into prayer to know this truth. Thank you for standing with me and knowing that this life is precious because it is the expression of God. There is only one God, one power, one presence that moves and breathes itself into being through all things and every single one of us. I know God here in this moment is the truth of my life, is the truth of every single person. And we come together within the sound of my voice to know the truth that this life is a joyous expression of harmony and of peace. That we extend our hands and our hearts to all those shining the light on human dignity and compassion. That we are here to give and receive the divine gift of love. That we see clearly God in action and call it forth into being. And in that way, this truly is heaven on earth. And so I see and know that possibility of creating a world that works for everyone. I know that each and every one of us uses our voice, uses our truth, steps up into that place of knowing God unfolding. And with that, all is well, and nothing can dominate other than this divine life that is Spirit expressed. With a grateful heart, I allow it to be, and so it is.